Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and you engaged and grannies to this Friday morning edition of The Big Puzzle. This is Barry Prince coming live from my kitchen here in northern British Columbia through the facilities of UCY TV. Welcome to the show. And this morning, well, actually, guys, in the last couple of weeks here, I was surfing around on sites that are standing up against the Canadian government. I come across a site called Post Millennial. And it's my pleasure today to be joined by Ali Taghva, who is one of the co-founders of this organization. Organization I see growing in leaps and bounds, really standing up against and pushing back what we see going on in our Canadian government, and the absolute lunacy in Ottawa. Welcome to the show, Ali, and good morning.
Good morning to you as well, Barry. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here this morning to talk about exactly what we're doing and why we're growing and the message we're putting out there and why it's resonating.
Well, why don't you start off by telling people a little bit about your organization, how long it's been in existence, and what kind of membership and attendance, and what kind of reports you're doing?
Yeah, so we basically started about 4 months ago. It was myself and my partner, Matthew Azrieli. And at that time, we were discussing what we were seeing in the news, what was going around. And we found that just our views were not being represented in the media, at all. And we started to do some research, and we found a Harvard review study that said that the center-right is actually the least represented ideology in the media spectrum. So you have, on the left, you have every single ideology, and on the far right, you have some ideologies, but the center-right is just not getting its fair share. And it just doesn't have that same impassionate journalism that every other aspect and ideology really gets. So we started with that, and we started a little news site called the Post Millennial, and the basis of it was that we were going to be free speech, we weren't going to censor people, and we were going to be the voice for all the voiceless, the people who just were not being even talked about in a fair way. We started that 4 months ago, and within that 4 months, we've had 100% growth rate every month. We've had about 100,000 unique visitors to the site in the last month. We're now reaching hundreds of thousands of people through our Facebook pages, and our likes, subscribers, and all those things are actually increasing rapidly. Our email subscriber list doubles as well every month.
Cool.
Yeah, and on top of that, we're now trying to develop full video because Canadian media is just so far behind that they're only writing, and you can't tell a real story just through text. Me and you are talking, people are listening. That real human connection only happens through video. So where something like the National Post is great, they're just not there yet. And we want to come in and represent these voiceless people properly through all these mediums.
Well, you know what, Ellie? I think there's a lot of people out there that want their voices heard right now because everything that we say and question our government about is falling on deaf ears. And there's absolutely no representation. What you're talking about right now, I see the same thing being played out all across this country, all across the United States, all across the world, that the middle voice is being quashed. And I was looking at some of the numbers on your site, and I was going through some of your information, and I'm appalled. I'm absolutely enthused to see what's going on with the site and the amount of people that are jumping on board and viewing these videos, especially the patriotic dad.
He's one of our best people.
Oh boy, I tell you, I've listened. I'll post a couple of his links in the chat box during the course of the hour here, so people can listen to this gentleman speak. But you're right, Ali. It's time that we break down the barriers and talk to our fellow Canadians with our hearts, because our country is in a lot of trouble right now. And
as a millennial, I feel like my generation has been gutted. I feel like this entire generation has been so fallen under this perfect PR media machine that the very good education that they're getting, they're not putting it to use. Like simple math says, if a population is getting old, debt is terrible. It's going to get harder and harder to pay that debt. And yet the millennials are one of the most pro-debt groups out there, even though we're the ones who are going to be left with literally all of it.
Billions and billions. What happened there? Did I lose you?
I think you lost me for a second, but I'm back now.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't remember where I left off, but it really feels like the millennial generation has been gutted intellectually. No one's discussing ideas. It almost has become this like sport where we all just come out, raise our flags, protect our team, and no one's even discussing ideas anymore. And that's probably the scariest thing as someone coming from the Middle East. My family moved from Iran to Canada, and we moved because we didn't like the culture and the problems in that country. We came here because Canada was pro-innovation. It was pro-small business. It was about the individual. No one really was left behind because the country was running so well. Mm-hmm. And now it feels like most people who are coming in, forget them having a good life. It's just about them meeting bare sustenance.
Yeah, it's what I'm seeing at the borders right now and our immigration problems. They're just an accelerate. I was looking at some numbers from, the projections for this year, Ali, and we're going to see an immigration problem in Canada here in the next couple of years that we are not prepared for, that this country will never handle. And why is this being allowed to happen? Well, we're seeing the same thing go on in Europe right now, and we're looking at the multitude of problems that they're facing. And what we're seeing in Canada is the same thing being played out, and it's time now that we put a stop to it.
For sure. You see, I think the problem Canadians have right now is we've had probably one of the best immigration systems that exist in the world for legal immigration. We had a point system where the Americans never did. They're trying to do it now, and everyone's throwing a wrench in front of Trump for literally a policy that Canada has right now. And most of our immigrants tend to have actually integrate and develop well in society. All of these people go through rigorous security checks. They're the cream of the crop of their nations, and that's how they get in. The entire illegal immigration system is going to cripple our nation. Canadians have never dealt with American illegal immigration, and I think they have this weird idea that the refugees coming from, they're not even real refugees because they're coming from the States, but these groups, they think it's going to be the same as our legal immigrants, and it's not. We're going to start seeing the same problems that happen in the States now start happening in Canada. Mm-hmm. And that's going to also tarnish our legal immigration system, because now people are going to think...
Go ahead, sorry. Didn't want to interrupt you, but it's not illegal. It's irregular, according to justice.
Okay. This is the thing I also hate. Political correctness in these areas just blocks debate. And the whole purpose of human development has been open debate gets us the best ideas. We use those, we proceed. That's just how life is meant to work. And it feels like we're now, I think it's 1984, they have the double speak, where they're trying to code everything together, and then it's keeping most of the population out of conversation.
Exactly. Well, it's designed to do that, Ali. I mean, they're quashing free speech in this country at an unprecedented rate, and people don't see it. I mean, you give them an inch, they take a mile. I mean, M103 is just an example of that. What a barbaric form of legislation to bring into a country like Canada. And then, of course, we see all the going-ons inside the Canadian government. The removal of female genital mutilation from our citizenship guide. by the Liberal government should raise red flags in everybody's minds. The fact that Trudeau wants to bring ISIS fighters back into Canada and try integrating them back into Western society. These people shouldn't be integrated. They should be taken out and put on a rope or put into jail because they will
life
not
in
change.
prison in Syria. Don't even bring them back to Canada. I don't even want them in Canada.
Well, why is our government doing this, folks?
Yeah.
What nefarious agenda is going on inside of our government? I mean, I'm at a point now, Ali. I'm 63, and boy, I'll tell you, I've enjoyed Canada all my life. I love this country with all my heart. Our perceived freedoms that we still have, I love, and it's all going to change here in the very near future if we don't cut the head off this snake, buddy. I have never been so concerned about the future of my country and my children. And my biggest objective right now is to try and get the young people involved and make them realize that, there's a pile of crap coming to them if they don't get involved in stopping this. And if we can get them involved, we'll see the changes.
For sure. I mean, again, I'm very worried in terms of how the millennial generation is moving forward. I think on some issues we're kind of stuck, and it's really hurting us with the millennials. But I think over time, our policy, the center rights policies will develop, and I think the millennial generation will wake up. I'll give you an example. When we started our website, we had less than 1% of our fan base actually being the millennial base. But in the last 4 months, we started working on our messaging. We started working on the way we actually develop our content. And that number has gone up to 7%. So if we can work on that in 4 months, I'm very, very hopeful that general Canadians over time will wake up. They'll know what the problem is.
I hope it happens very, very quickly here, Ali, because some of the things going on inside our Canadian government, the destruction that's being done now is going to take years to repair. And if we don't, like I said, if we don't get on this right away, and I agree, the millennials are the answer. Unfortunately, so many of them are mind-controlled, dumbed down, and controlled by the corporate media. A lot of people still go to CBC for their information every night. First thing you got to do is turn off mainstream media, because nothing you see on mainstream is the truth. It's all programmed agenda being fed into our brains. The young people are starting to wake up. My son is an example of that. Last year he was kind of aware that there was some real bad things going on inside the government, but lately he has really, really come around. And he's making statements to me like, "Boy, Dad, we got to cut the head off this guy." And he's 26 years old, and he's got a family, and I've got 2 grandchildren with him, and I've got grandchildren on the other side, and I got grandchildren with my daughter. And it's, every day I wake up and I go, wow, man, we know about this right now, folks. The information's out there, and it's our duty, Ali. It's not something that we should do. It's our duty right now to really start paying attention to what's going on, push back hard. Go ahead. Yeah,
well, I'm trying to find this one article I found on Globe and Mail a little while ago. It said something. One sec. It's like an extremely high percentage of the Canadian work market is set to become automated in the next 10 to 20 years. On top of that, the Canadian government has no real plan to deal with it, and Canadian businesses at this moment are already behind technology as it is right now. If you put all of those things together and think about the next 10 to 15 years, and the fact that, there's something called the smile curve, and it's basically in the world, where is value added in a production cycle? Right now, that value is in research and development, because you create technology and you can make billions off it, and then sales, because it's very hard to sell to Canadians and Americans without really knowing Canadians and Americans. Now, our country has created such a weird set of policies where we're not set to really benefit from this future growth in technology and development and innovation, because what do these businesses require? They need low taxes, they need well-educated people, and they need a stable society that is geared towards business and innovation. And Justin Trudeau, with these massive scale regulations, is killing that. He's just killing our capacity to innovate and do anything going forward. So it's not even like the cultural problems are a massive problem, but it's real Fiscal mistakes are being set up as well. And I'm really worried that these are going to be something where, for 40, 50 years, we won't be able to fix because we'll be that far behind.
Wait a second, hold on. They just said that by 2045 our budget will be balanced. That's good news, isn't it?
I guess, yeah, it'll be balanced, but we'll be the new poor.
I mean, when Trudeau came into power, you know this, Ali, that we had a $2 billion surplus, and now we're $58 billion in the hole, and that's 2 years of Liberal policies. And what you're talking about, that is the attack on Canadian businesses. Really, I've looked at all the new taxes and regulations being brought in by the Liberal government, and none of it is conducive to future growth in Canada. They're destroying our country.
The only people left will be big business.
Yeah, the agenda is right in front of your face. If you really sit down and put the pieces together and look at what they're doing and what like you said, 10, 15 years down the road, where we're going to be, it's not something I want to leave for my kids at all.
Yeah.
So,
I think Canada is in a very special position. America is unstable right now. We have very educated, capable people. We have some of the best universities on earth. We could be the global power moving forward. We could be the innovation engine of the world. We have so many of the capabilities right here, and it's just not being used. It's being left on the table and not even being tapped into. And I think it's because they're trying to benefit their own group of people. It's not about benefiting the country. It's about benefiting the party and your group of friends.
Well, it's so blatantly obvious. I mean, just look at the finance minister, man. Look at what Trudeau just got found guilty of 5 ethics violations. Well, you know what? I've got to applaud him because he is the first Canadian prime minister to ever have that happen.
Yeah, and we love our first,
Yeah, his one accomplishment in 2017 was that he was the first Canadian prime minister to be found guilty of 5 different ethics violations. And what does he get? A slap on the wrist for going to an island from a gentleman who's registered as a lobbyist for the Canadian government.
Who represents an entire faith.
Yeah, and what he represents 1.5, I think, billion Muslims, I believe the number I read. And, of course, Trudeau flies down there on his private helicopter, and they have closed-door meetings, and I'll guarantee you they weren't talking about their grandchildren. It's just like Trudeau.
I feel like even if he was partying with the Pope, even if he was partying with the Pope, it would be awkward.
Well, look at his two-hour closed-door meeting with George Soros in Davos. What do you think they talked about? And you look at how Trudeau is pushing the open borders agenda of the United Nations. As far as I'm concerned, the United Nations has no right even having any influence or dealings in our society. And like Trump or hate him, I really like how he called out the United Nations here in the last week.
Yeah.
I applaud.
A lot of our readers actually love that as well. I think
I applaud Nikki Haley for what she stood up and said in the United Nations.
Yeah.
It really raised some eyebrows. And him pulling funding from the United Nations, I would applaud him for doing that.
Yeah, but the thing is, you only have – this is a weird thing I've realized in the last few years. You have as much sway as the money you're putting in. When the money is taken out, someone else replaces you, and now they have that sway. So if the U.S. pulls out that budget, who replaces it? China. Who replaces it? Russia. Who is now the de facto owner of the UN? And it's almost like you got to be paying to play. And I applaud Donald Trump for doing a lot of these tactics, but I deeply feel like that $283 million cut, by the time it's actually passed through all the regulatory steps that I think Congress of the United States requires, will end up being a far smaller cut. So I applaud her for the brevity and the rhetoric, but I feel like at the end of the day, they will end up bringing that budget back because they understand you got to pay to have that power. And I think the largest example of it was Qatar. Saudi Arabia came to scare Qatar to get Qatar back into its fold. What did it do by cutting it off? Qatar is now fully allied with Iran. Mm-hmm. You had, and these tactics, not only are they destabilizing it, they're letting us lose very important allies. If we want to go through this, I think Donald Trump is right in what he said. Jerusalem has been the capital of Israel for so long. I agree with the sentiment. I just think the move will end up changing because of the real politics that exists.
Yeah, that's a loaded question for sure, and a conversation that many people are having right now about his move with Jerusalem. I have studied history quite a bit, and Jerusalem has been, and through history has been, the capital of the Jewish people, as far as I can understand the research that I've done. So we'll leave that one alone today because that's a loaded subject. We'll kind of stay on Canadian politics right now. There's so much going on in our country, but
there is a lot.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the show, what I said a few minutes ago, I really think the key is, and I like the numbers you're seeing increase in millennials. I hope that number doubles in the next month and doubles again after that, because then you're really going to get some young minds looking at what's going on inside our government and looking at the projections, like you said, 10 years down the road. Automation is going to really change our society.
Yeah.
I've read reports down in the States about automation, and some of the numbers I'm reading are just like, what are people going to be doing for work in the very near future?
I can give you perspective of that right now. So we are a startup newspaper. We called the newspaper that had the exact same number of hits to their website as us. I'm not going to say the name just because, we have a very good friendship. I like getting information from them. But they had a staff of about 30 people full-time. Our team is 2 people part-time. And we can put out our content because we're using technology at a far better rate than they are. So even in the news industry, that's the rate of automation already. 30 people's job is done by 2.
Wow.
It's very scary.
Yeah, it is scary when you think about the implications for the workforce in the future. I mean, it all plays into Agenda 21, as far as I can see. Compartmentalizing society, getting us all in a one-wage system will put us in apartment buildings, and there goes our freedoms, buddy. I mean, some of the things that really, really kind of disturb me right now is the big push that we're going to see towards a cashless society in the next couple of years. And then of course, what's going on with chipping around the world. I mean, I think
the benefit of a I think I agree with your fears of a cashless society, but I think that the blockchain and crypto technology could be the answer, because the blockchain, all data is kept by all blockchain at the same time. So anyone's data who's different than, the greater mass, is a false. They tampered with it. So that could be the potential solution of like basically using cryptocurrencies that aren't connected to any state.
Okay.
But I see the general point. Like, if we don't become an innovative society, the only way the country will develop is if the state comes in, does exactly what you're saying, and then starts using all of our cash and resources to buy technology from the countries who are developing it to then automate out production. That's just what's going to happen unless we become an innovative society. And I think the problem with all this is we try to become an innovative society, but then we lose manufacturing, and then people complain. And the reason they complain is because when we lose manufacturing, the government is not acting to help those people. Manufacturing jobs are going to be harder and harder to keep, but the people who lose their jobs should not be left jobless. They should be given a real path into a job of similar circumstance without a headache, without, losing your entire life. And I think this will be a discussion that Canada will have to have at some point, because large portions of people will be automated. And if we can choose to say no to automation, but another country will take it.
Yeah, my concerns about cashless, of course, is complete control of government over people, and of course, you won't be able to take a poop without them knowing how many pieces of toilet paper you used and whether you're paying.
Which is why I think crypto will be the only thing that can help your fears. I think crypto will be the only solution, because if it becomes cashless and there is no crypto, then the government controls everything.
Well, then we're definitely going to have to explore that a little bit. Something I really haven't spent a lot of time looking into. There's so many things that a guy has to look into every day, and you only have so many hours.
Yeah, well, I would say there's a lot of libertarians out there who have your fears. So they're trying to ally, those fears and find a way for them to continue living as society. Just, society's going to do what it's going to do.
Exactly.
We got to be able to find a way to survive in that mess.
Well, and of course, there are also, the big push towards shipping people now, and we see a lot of society actually.
Oh man, I hope that stops.
Well,
I really
you know
don't.
what? I see that coming. I mean, look at what they're doing now, how the big push is. I mean, companies are now offering employees actually incentives and stuff to take the chip and start pushing this idea around. I see them being glamorized now, and you're going to see a big push to the main media to make this the cool new thing to do. Boy, if they get us to that point, Ali, and we become a cashless society, the implications are just mind-boggling. They really are. Yeah. And if you want to talk about complete control of society, well, that would be a way of doing it, wouldn't it? Yeah, so we gotta watch that one for sure.
That's on there. It's on the list.
Thoughts. Yeah, it's on my list of things to watch. The list is very long, my friend.
The list gets longer every day.
It does, and I find myself, Ellie, I can only look at so many things during the day. I mean, the amount of information I try to absorb scrambles my brain as it is, and then 10 other people are sending me links on stuff that they want me to look at. And I'm going, wait a second, hold on. I'll put it on my list. It's number 14,
Yeah. I mean, take this in. They send us 380 articles a week. That's how many articles I'm sent to publish a week. I pick like the top 40 or 50 I like. But between that 380 articles I'm reading a week, I feel like I've read what should be most of the big news. And yet I'm constantly missing news. Yeah, There's that much stuff happening.
Exactly. How many writers are actually contributing to the site right now? I mean, is this just
We have about 15. We have about 15 writers, but we also have syndication from the Canadian press. And that's kind of how we keep our site very fair. You're going to find opinions, from the far left, from the far right, from the center right. They're all going to be on our site. Obviously, they're more curated towards the center right, but they're all on the platform. And then you're going to have your breaking news also brought to you from the Canadian press. So the same, breaking news that the Globe and Mail, CBC, same time that they have it, we'll have it ready for our readers as well. So when readers want to, completely separate themselves from the CBC, we can be that gateway. Where you're still getting all of your, recent news when it comes.
I really like the platform, Ellie. I really do, because I think it's critical that you provide all different opinions and views on issues that are going on, so people can sit down and look at this view, they can look at that view, and decide for themselves really what is going on. I really like this platform you guys have set up.
Thank you. Well, one of the things, again, coming from Iran and then visiting Canada and then visiting a few other countries, I've noticed people come at problems in fundamentally different ways. So, my mom will see something and she'll see a completely different answer, and 2 or 3 different answers can be right in a situation. So that's one of the biggest reasonings why I wanted to put up all these different views, because I've seen times where a conservative opinion is given to me and a, liberal or an NDP opinion or whatever, and both opinions could work. And in that situation, that's the best situation, because then we should be sitting down and comparing and really seeing what is the best one. And it feels like in politics, less and less we're doing that, and more we're just screaming.
I agree. So is your site only for politics, or could other issues of importance be brought forward on that platform?
So right now we do politics, business, culture, and international affairs. We're going to be expanding into sports and entertainment within the next 6 months. Basically, I planned this into like 4 phases. The first phase, which was the last 4 months, was us just becoming, a capable website that could stay online, get hundreds of thousands of views. In the next 4 months, we're going to be improving our video quality to have full programming, 30-minute videos, a full audio podcast, hour-long on Apple and Spotify. And then in the 6 months after that, the 4 months after that, we're going to have full syndication, multiple new categories, and an app come out all at the same time.
First question in chat: why sports and entertainment?
Well, we actually have a lot of, Google gives you a lot of data on people who are coming to your website and what they're interested in. And the next big category after politics, business, and culture was sports. And the one after that was actually gardening. And the one after that was entertainment. I don't know anything about gardening, so we're going to go to entertainment before we go to gardening.
Okay, I think environment should be the next one on the list. Right below
environment would be a good one, actually. Environment would be a good one.
That's something I really spend a lot of my time focusing on, what's going on the planet right now. And, Ali, all these political parties, well, they're going to rise and they're going to fall, and we're going to see changes in society. Whatever kind of happens down the road is going to happen. But I'm kind of looking at this planet right now going, boy, we got some major problems as far as our planet itself goes. And,
what is your view on that? What are the problems?
Boy, you got some time?
I got some time. We got 30 minutes.
Well, for one, this site that we're on, this station that we're on, has quite a few shows on nuclear problems that we're having on the planet, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I see nuclear being one of the biggest problems that the human race is going to have to deal with in the near future.
The nuclear waste?
Nuclear waste and nuclear plants themselves, because I'll give you an example. I did a study one night, Al, and I'll make this brief. I did a study one night, and I punched up on my computer every known and active fault line on the planet Earth today. And I had my son's printer, and I printed it on a transparent screen, on a transparent piece of paper. And then I did another search engine, every known and active nuclear power plant on the Earth today. And it brought up a map and showed you every nuclear power plant on the planet. And I took those two pieces of paper and I overlaid them on top of each other. And I urge you to do this yourself, because when you do that, you will literally fall off your chair. Because it's almost like they have built nuclear power plants within striking range of major fault lines that are going to produce major earthquakes in the future. They've done them in the past. They are going to do them again. The San Madre is an example. If you look at the Mississippi River Delta right now in the United States of America, the nuclear power plants and the chemical plants alone on the Mississippi River, well, if the same event happened in 1811 and 1812, you would see disaster that we have never dealt with on a human scale. We're looking at the Cascadia fault line off the coast of British Columbia and North America right now that is overdue for movement. That's going to create a 9.2 mega earthquake when it shifts. It's going to create at least a 50 to 100 foot tsunami, and that's going to hit the west coast of North America in some places in 15 minutes, other areas maybe up to an hour, before you have a major inundation of water hitting the whole west coast. I mean, we got to think about that.
I didn't even thought that this could have been a problem. I didn't even think that this was happening.
You know what, Ali? I spend about half my time kind of looking at what's going on politically in the world, because it's influencing our life right now. But really, I spend a lot of my time studying the breakdown on mammals on the planet, and some of the stats I read. I study breakdowns in plankton in our ocean. And plankton, of course, produces 60% of the oxygen that we breathe on this planet. But since 1970, the plankton numbers are down approximately 50%. So we've lost 50% of our oxygen-producing capabilities on this planet. I think that putting an environmental site up on your website would be a real bonus, because a lot of people share the same concerns that I do. But you know what? We have the answers to it all, Alec. I honestly believe right now we have the answers to all the problems we see coming up with our environment. One of the things I talk about a lot, and I really emphasize a lot, is the use of hemp in our society. I'm involved right now, Ali. I'm going to send you a link here after the show. I'm going to send you a link for a company that I'm getting involved with out of Calgary that's building hemp-based building products. And boy, I'll tell you, if I take 5 minutes with somebody, I sit down and I show them the pros of building with hemp as opposed to the conventional methods that we use. One of the biggest problems we have on the North Coast here.
Wait, what are we building with hemp?
All our houses, all our factories, everything that you
can build houses with hemp?
Okay, here, Ali, I'm going to hit you with, you obviously haven't looked into this, but I'm going to hit you with 5 facts here, and then we'll get back to politics. I can build you a house that won't burn. I can build you a house now that's 5 times stronger than wood. I can build you a house that will never allow black mold or white mold to form. I can build you a house that you can build today, and 300 years from now, you can pass on to 7 generations of your family, and the house will look like the day it was built. How would you like that? How would you like to build a house that doesn't burn?
I'm literally looking at the photos right now, and these things look beautiful. These houses pull in carbon dioxide too.
They pull in for the whole life of the plant. I just did this one. I mean, I've looked at so many aspects of building with hemp in the last 3 weeks, and I'm going to be going to Calgary here in January to do a training seminar with this company, and I'm going to become a sales representative for this product on the North Coast. I've already talked to 3 chiefs from the local villages around here. And one of the biggest problems we have on the North Coast is black mold. You can build a brand new house on a reservation, and 20 years from now, that house will be condemned because you cannot stop black mold from forming. When you get two pieces of wood, you get moisture between those two pieces of wood, black mold will form. So they condemn these houses after 20 years. The house will look like a brand new house, yet it's condemned. So if we build those houses with hemp, 100 years from now, that house will have no black mold. And of course, one of the biggest problems they have on the reservations, if the house ever does catch on fire, by the time the volunteer fire department gets their poop together and gets over to the site, the house is fully emblazed. The billions and billions of dollars that can be saved in property loss, the hundreds of lives of firefighters lost going in to save people in fires can all be eliminated in our society if we implement industrial hemp on a wide-scale basis. This company spent $20 million developing this product, and we're now at the marketing stage. And to me, I've been looking for something myself to get behind that would really make a change for society, and this is one of the things I see would monumentally change our society. Hemp was taken away from us. It was demonized in our society. I mean, cannabis was never called marijuana, Ali, before 1939. That word was applied to the plant. It's a slang term. It was meant to demonize the plant. Along came reefer madness. Along came Chase Morgan and oil and everything else and plastics. And we see ourselves where we are today, but it all can be changed. Everything that you see in your room right now, my friend, can be replaced with hemp. Everything you're touching, everything you're using can be replaced with hemp.
I'm actually, I'm literally Googling this hemp stuff right now, and this is super interesting. My dad does some building, so I'm just reading and learning a lot right now.
Listen, buddy, when you start looking into this, your eyes will open, and you'll ask yourself the same question. Everybody else that really looks into this is asking themselves, why are we not using this right now in society? Well, it comes down to educating the public. And when I start talking to people and I lay down 3 or 4 of the major benefits of growing with hemp, you can see their eyeballs. And a lot of them have the same reaction that you're having right now, Ali. They really haven't taken time to look into it. You know, they're too busy watching the hockey game. And it's true. But now I've got actually 2 builders up here in Terrace that I've shared information with. They're absolutely, what it is, what we're talking about right now is a complete revolution in the way we build. And its time has come because we need our forest. One of the studies, like I said, I've done is looking at the loss of oxygen production on the planet. And like I said, plankton produce 60% of it. The rest of it comes from our trees and our forests. So we need to stop cutting down forests. We need to cover our fields with industrial hemp. You want to hear another blowing? I'll give you one more example, and then we'll get off it. When I get talking about hemp, Ali, I cannot stop, okay? I can't.
No, it's understandable. It's a very interesting topic.
In France, they just did a 2-year peer-reviewed study. What they did is they took 2 fields side by side. On one of the fields, they grew a large crop of industrial hemp, and I'll show you these reports. On the other field, they grew a crop of corn. After 2 years, they took soil samples from the 2 fields, and they tested them for microorganisms and all the good stuff that's in soil that makes your plants grow. And the soil that had been covered with industrial hemp had 17 times the levels of nutrients that field that was exposed to a conventional crop of corn. And this is a peer-reviewed study. So in other words, when industrial hemp grows, an 8-foot cannabis plant can have up to a 10-foot root. So in other words, those roots get into the soil and they release microbes that were never ever released before. Hence, you have incredible growth. So if you take a conventional crop, if you grew, we're seeing a major problem with feeding our planet, right? So they say. I don't believe that. But if you want to talk about food production, you take a field that has industrial hemp on it, grow it for 2 years, and then put a conventional crop on that field, and watch how fast and how laden with nutraceuticals that plant is when it's finished. It's unbelievable how we could change society by simply implementing a plant that has been on this planet for thousands of years, has been used by the human race for thousands of years, and was taken away from us. And it's time for it to come back. And I'm only talking about the industrial use of it. You want to get talking about the medical? I'll go for another hour. Because I have seen...
Well, I mean, what is your view on the legalization and how it's being legalized?
It's bull crap. Bull crap. Nobody, in my opinion, should have any control over something that grows naturally on this planet and has so many benefits to the human race. And if you really take some time, Ali, some night, and just get into looking at some of the benefits of the medical use of cannabis, it'll absolutely astound you. And why it's not being allowed to come back to society is, of course, we're fighting big farming. The most evil, benign corporation in the world is big pharmaceutical. I mean, pharmaceutical drugs is now the third biggest killer of people in the United States of America. I think about that. I go, what? Wait a second. Hold on. You take a prescription, you go to the doctor, next week he gives you another one. Go back a couple months later, he gives you another one. All those analyticals store in your liver, and they have a party, and you die. But they make their money off you. And that's what's going on in the pharmaceutical industry. And I don't even want to get into that conversation today because I'll get going for an hour. We don't have that time to talk big pharma or vaccines or all the other stuff that I look into. But it's all part of the big picture. It's all destruction of the human body. But that's another rabbit hole. We don't really want to get into that one today. I'll get going. But you really, when I'll finish my thoughts on cannabis with one statement. About 5 years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Rick Simpson. I met him on a radio show, and I started talking with Rick. And, up to that point in my life, Ali, I really hadn't looked at all the benefits of cannabis. But he kind of opened my eyes to it. And now I see what can be done. I will not stop talking about it because it can actually change the planet. It can actually heal our planet from the inside out. And we are seeing major problems with the planet right now. It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that I read. And I really kind of, as being on the radio, I really try not to ever put out any bull crap. Really try and vet my information to make sure that what I'm saying is true and accurate. And the reports I've read on die-off of mammals on the planet, I vet that information. And unfortunately, it's true. So we really need to make a change because 10, 15 years down the road, we could be in a real pickle.
Yeah, I'm really... There's a lot of just general problems hitting at once.
Well, you put up a site on environment on your site, and I will provide your people with information that will absolutely...
Yeah, we'll for sure do that. I'll put it into the phase 2.
Okay, you do that. Because that's a platform that I think is necessary for people to really start thinking about what we're looking at 10 years down the road from now. If we really look just 10 years down the road, and we look at the numbers of mammals that are dying on the planet, we look what's happening to our ocean. The reports about die-off in the ocean are just absolutely mind-boggling. Well,
you already have mass extinction happening for so many
we have right now, and many scientists will agree with this statement, we have the biggest mass die-off that the human race has ever experienced in this particular time in history. We've had mass die-offs in the past, and a lot of them have caused. I mean, there's been times that the Earth has been covered in ice. There's been times the Earth has been so hot that a lot of animals couldn't live, or the Earth has been struck by an asteroid, and you've seen a mass die-off of species, but life has always survived. But now, I look at the nuclear industry, and I look at what's going on with the problems we're having with nuclear waste. And then I compound that with geological events that are going to happen, that are going to cause major meltdowns in a lot of nuclear power plants in the future. That's inevitable the way I see it. You can't build a nuclear power plant in striking range of a fault line that's going to create an 8 magnitude or a 9 magnitude and not expect to have major meltdowns. Well, we've got hundreds of these all over the planet right now. We're committing suicide. So my message to young people is that they really should spend a little bit of time looking at this and then figure out for themselves where we're going. And, I almost feel like apologizing to young people when I'm talking to them because I was complacent to a lot of this stuff most of my life. I just went along with the flow, went fishing and watched the hockey games. But, boy, I'll tell you, I can't do any of that stuff anymore because we've got a lot of things to deal with. And hemp does have answers, Ali. So I'll leave it at that for now. But that's my hemp, okay, for 5 years. And I could go for another 20, believe me. Easy.
Perfect. I mean, we have another 20 minutes.
Well, we don't want to completely cover it with that subject, but when I get into it, I can't stop, literally.
No, it's like me and the innovation stuff. It's just once you know that topic, it's like your life.
Well, yeah, when you see an answer to so many problems, and all we have to do is educate the public, because people aren't stupid. And if it's put to people, I find, I kind of really look at everything with common sense. And if we take a common sense approach to things, and you really sit down and look at what hemp could do to our society, then I believe society will embrace it in hordes, but it's getting them educated. So like I said, today I sat down and talked to you, and you really hadn't looked into it. And now you're
not at all.
Wait a second, hold on, this is a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think one of the things people have mixed up is they think people don't read as much as they used to. And I think people just don't read books as much as they used to. But they read just far, 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 far more than ever before. And I think social media is now allowing people to just, people aren't stupid because now they have so many avenues to finally get information. I really don't know when I read history books if that history is true for a lot of the stuff. Because even, like Donald Trump comes out and says something today, we get photos of like that thing right away. And even in that situation where we have photo and videos, we still aren't sure about what the heck happened, like fully. So how sure could people have been about anything like 200 years ago when, a king could just write something and it's now just the only source of information?
Yeah, interesting thoughts.
Yeah, so I am hopeful that people will be educated and that they have the path to be educated now for the first time ever.
I really hope so too, Ali, because, it might get to a point where a large part of society right now, I see people getting involved. I see people starting to pay attention. But I unfortunately, a large part of our society is still in the matrix. And I don't know if they'll become active until it actually affects their lives.
And then it's too late.
And then actually when we get, I was just going to say, when we get to that point, it might be too late. The window of opportunity might close. But I honestly believe right now, if the human race could all look at themselves in a mirror and go, hey, what are we leaving for our children? Your legacy is really what you're leaving for your children. And I look at us right now and I'm going, wow, we are leaving one pile of poop for our children to look after. And the thing is, we know about a lot of this stuff now. So like I said earlier in the show, it's our duty really to get involved, in my opinion, if you love your children.
I think so too. I like one of the biggest things I noticed in Iran compared to Canada was that, like, in Iran, everyone had this sense of national duty, like from the poorest guy to the richest guy. They really felt like they owed something to Iran as a country that really was not providing that much. I'm surprised in Canada that feeling isn't to that same standard from a lot of people. I've really been surprised by that.
So when did you leave Iran?
I left it when I was 6, and I go back about once every 5-6 years maximum.
Wow, what a change in culture compared to Canada. Eh?
Yes, it certainly is. But just being able to see both sides, I see why people question things different, and like how faiths have developed. So you have things in the Christian faith that just conflict with a lot of the progressive values, quote unquote, of Canadian society now. And then there are those specific things that actually conflict from Christian, Catholic society in the modern Canadian state. Those specific ones would not be the things that would affect the Muslim state. So the biggest example I can give of that is abortion. Abortion is deemed, a sin in the Christian faith because life is given at the moment the egg and the sperm meet. In Islam, life is actually given at 4 months. That's when the spirit goes into the body of the child, and now it's a living thing. So to them, ideologically, an abortion is not a sin until 4 months, at which point the soul is in the body of the child. So to me, I've started to realize, like, people have different cultures, and that, if you want to keep that culture over there, that's great. It works for you, I guess. I kind of like this open culture, but I see why people, have just different ways of doing things. I just don't want to live in that country or have it on me.
So is Iran mostly Muslim?
Iran is, it's Muslim, but it's like most, if you're not in the very poor areas, the Muslims are very, very moderate. They drink, they party, they have very, very Canadian lives. And when they come here, none of them wear hijabs. Like, really, no one really coming from Iran wears hijabs when they come to here. And the reasoning is, before the Islamic Republic, right, before the 79 coup, Iran had a Shah. That Shah was very, very modern. He banned the headscarf. He forced, everyone to go to school, provided contraception so society wasn't becoming super pregnant and they could actually develop people. We had bars, There are photos of people in bikinis in Iran in the 60s. No.
I looked at a study of Iran in the 60s and Iran today.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. The Shah was progressive in his thoughts. So
a lot of the people, but a lot of the people of the upper middle class, they have that mentality. They have the Shah's mentality.
So when they come, they don't really have a problem, and that's why they all moved to Canada. That's why we literally all moved to here. But the rest of society, they really do believe in the Islamic law. Like, they genuinely do believe in that. That is what they believe in. That is what they want. And, like, they will tell you that to your face, no problem.
And the basis of their religion is the Quran? Is that the
It's
basis?
the Quran. It's the Quran, but you have to understand that Iran is not Sunni. It's Shia. So it's a different strand of Islam. There is like Protestants and Catholics, basically.
Interesting. It's nice to hear opinions from somebody that's actually lived there and seen the culture.
Yeah,
I've never been over there, so I can't voice an opinion on it. I've never been out of Canada.
I mean, you would be able to go there and have the most uninterrupted life. Now, your wife would not. So
to me, that's
there
not
are
right,
serious
my friend.
problems. That's the real problem.
The human rights violations I totally stand against. Of course, Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest perpetrators of human rights violations. And
Saudi Arabia, China, there's
a list of them.
It's really worrying to see how little someone cares about their own people sometimes.
It's funny, that list of people that are top of the list of human violations happen to be sitting on top 10 countries on the United Nations. How does that work?
It's power. Power makes things happen.
I mean, we talked before the show talked about Trump's move on Jerusalem and what Nikki Haley just said at the United Nations. Some pretty powerful stuff going on down in the United States of America right now. And where it's all
I'm
going
actually
in the
excited
next
to
little
see
while.
what's going to happen.
I think the can of worms is going to get opened. It should have been opened years ago, but I think there's too much information. And we don't have time to get into this conversation today, but there's too much information coming out about corruption at the highest levels of government in the United States right now that I think the American people are demanding justice at this point.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, there's going to be a revolution.
Yeah, even though I would not have voted for Donald Trump, I probably would have voted Libertarian or not Hillary, not Trump. That wasn't for me. But I am glad Trump got in for the simple reason that him being in is the only person in my mind who would allow the exposition of the criminality that exists in the United States. I think if Hillary Clinton got in, she would be way more professional. We wouldn't see the level of corruption. If, it was a Bush, it was another Republican, it wouldn't have happened. It really had to have been this inexperienced politician coming in for us to see what is really happening in Congress and in government, which I think that's one of the best things of him winning.
Yeah, I'm not a Trump supporter, that's for sure. I see a possible real nefarious background to what he's doing, or an agenda to what he's doing, but we don't have time to discuss him today. But there's a few things he's done in the United States that I really like, and a lot of things he's done I don't like. So that's a conversation.
But that's like that with a lot of leaders.
It's the same with any leader, I guess. But you're right. I mean, I can't visualize Hillary Clinton getting in there, knowing how corrupt she is and everything we know about her now. My mind. But I think that's coming. I really do. And what's going to happen in the States in the next little while, well, it's going to directly affect us. So we're living in very interesting times right now, Ali, to say the least.
I'm excited to at least help change the direction a little bit.
Well, like I said, I applaud what you guys are doing. I spent some time running through your site and looking at some of the articles, and maybe we can post it here. I'll post it in chat here for you before we leave. And we're down to the last about 5 minutes of the show here. I'm going to get again to plug your site and where people can find you, and any other connections that you could possibly give people so they can look into what you're doing.
So everyone can find us at www.thepostmillennial.com, or you can find us at The Post Millennial on Facebook. All of our content is accessible there. You'll find great content from the Patriotic Dad, from William Brooke, and multiple other new personalities that we're bringing on board. We also have known writers who wrote for the National Post, Toronto Star, so on and so forth, who are currently writing, and more that are going to be joining our team to help professionally voice the opinions of the voiceless. And the biggest thing we are always looking for is involved fans to give us tips, to be involved, to send feedback, and to help us keep improving as we move forward, because we understand that everything is really about the reader and what they want to see and what their voice is.
Well, I think you'll be seeing me around your site a little bit.
I'm excited. I hope you'll end up writing for our environment section a little bit.
Well, you know what? I'll be quite honest. I'm not a writer, but I
You
like.
can give you a writer.
Huh?
You can tell him what to write, and then he'll write it for you.
Really? Well, that'd
Yeah.
be cool, because I'm not a writer. But
Okay.
definitely, I would
We'll
like to share
record you and then
information.
turn its text.
I would really like to share information about the aspects of what's going on in our planet, because it's all part of the big picture right now.
I mean, for sure, you definitely enlightened me on hemp. This is literally mind-blowing to me that this exists.
You know what? You know what's mind blowing to me is that you haven't, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying that people. You were an example.
Yeah,
of
haven't
today,
seen something so
haven't
great.
Seen this and go, wait a second, hold on, what's going on here?
I think it's the stigma, because you said hemp and I went marijuana, and then, but that's literally the socialization that's been put on us as we've grown up and seen TV and whatnot. I think once that's passed, maybe 2-3 years after legalization, this is going to boom.
It is, and like I said, it's all common sense. And really, when I'm to a point where I'm going to be selling this product in the north here, I will be pounding on people's doors with information that will absolutely blow their mind. I mean, the beautiful thing about this right now, Ali, is that we can do this now for the same cost of a conventional building.
Wow.
So, you think about that I can build now with this for the same cost as a normal building. It's not going to emanate chemicals. It's not going to burn. It's not going to create black mold. It's going to last the longevity, the strength. It's all a no-brainer. And when people look at this and they look at conventional building materials, somebody with an IQ of 50 will be able to figure out that this is a no-brainer, and it is going to come into society. And the sooner, the better, buddy, because like I said, I really I think about what is coming for my children right now and my grandchildren. And it tears me apart. It really does when I think of what they could have and what's coming. And we all have a chance right now to make a difference. So anybody out there listening to me or to Ali today, I urge you to get involved, especially when it comes to hemp. To get yourself educated and start talking to your friends and neighbors about it. Because everything in our society, the changes we need, are going to come from the grassroots level. And this is a grassroots movement, I think, to really shake the establishment right to the core. So my thoughts on that, buddy. It's all part of the big picture. And I was going to actually get Chuck Ocelli in today, and he thought we had 2 hours today, but I only had an hour. I was going to introduce you to another online host and maybe get him to interview you here in the near future. I'll send you his information, or I'll send your information to him.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You're going to be hearing from Chuck Ocelli because he's a gentleman that I do a lot of shows with and talk with a lot, and he definitely like to probably get you on a show. But anyways,
I would love to be there.
We're down to the last. The banner's going to kick in here in about 30 seconds. Thanks, guys, for tuning in today and listening to what we have to say. And it's been a good show. Lots of
have
good
a great day,
information.
guys.
Yeah, Ali, thanks again for joining me. And like I said, I'm going to get that patriotic dad on here real quick. You guys got to go to the site and listen to some of his videos. Go take a look at the information on the site, guys. And thanks again. It's been a great day, and you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. And I'm probably a few seconds before the banner starts. Not very good timing on my behalf.
My name is